Hey everyone, Egman here with another video. Today I've got kind of just a theory craft and kind of just discussion about the difference between counters and silver bullets and some examples for both and just kind of how I feel like they affect the game. There's counterplay in general I think is really good. I think it's good for a card game, and when I was playing Hearthstone it's something I kind of missed out. There was some counterplay, but it was since everything you did was on your turn, you couldn't interact with your opponent on their turn. It was something I was really missing. That's why in that game there's kind of a lot of RNG, because the idea is that, you know, it's an online client and then you can't, it's hard for you to move stuff when it's your opponent's turn. So like if something has like a, you know, if they have an auto that would say something in this game that says like, when this card is sent to the battle area, KO one of your opponent's battle cards, the Hearthstone equivalent would be, when this card is destroyed or whatever, randomly kill one of your opponent's battle cards, because you can't choose. So it's like, oh, just use RNG, it'll probably work out, you know, half the time, a fourth the time, you know what I mean? And that wasn't really fun. The ease of access of the online client was nice, but I really do like specific counterplay and being able to interact with your opponent. I think that's the big thing. It is a card game, right? You're supposed to play against an opponent and do stuff like that. So I think that's something that's really good. And so when there are problem cards that arise, you know, Bandai has a couple options, and they've pretty much have tried all three options. They've tried to errata cards. They've done that with like Mecha Frieza when that card was being degenerate. They've also tried to release hard counters to cards, and this is which are called silver bullets to a lot of people, and that's really what the definition of silver bullet is. It means that it's really a really hard counter against really just one or two cards, and the biggest and first one of those is Cronoa, right? It was obviously to shut down Shugesh. Shugesh was running wild in like August 1st meta. Yeah, just because if your leader card is yellow, your life is at 4 or less, this card gains 10k combo power for duration of the turn, then choose up to one Saiyan card in your hand with energy cost 3 or less, or play it. This card was busted when it first came out. And for anyone who's new into the game and people are playing the new Broly leader and deciding to get a little bit greedy and playing Shugesh, that's why it's something that's really prevalent in best of one formats too, because, you know, chances are you're not playing Cronoa, and a lot of people don't even know what Cronoa is because it's a card that got released half a year ago, right? Just with, you know, little consequence after it came out, because Shugesh didn't see as much play. But yeah, Bandai decided, okay, we really like this card, and even though it can be degenerate, because there are a lot of things with Shugesh that, like if you see just Saiyan, and then you just do 3-drop. There are so many cards that you could play that would be unfair. Like you could play Preface of Recovery Son Goku, which would untap 2 energy for free. Like that's like a free, like 2 sensu beans right there, and you still get the 10k, and you still get the body, right? And then there's like Endless Evolution Broly, which would, you know, you KO a card and then you get this out for free, and it can evolve into stuff. You could do like Determined Super Saiyan Son Goku, and then you can get the GT engine started. You could do Explosive Spirit Son Goku. That was a really infamous one, because then it would just, you've got 2 cards and you can kill anything without barrier, stop their entire big combo. And something else that people would do oftenly is Saiyan Teamwork Kaba too, just because it's sometimes really hard to get 2 green, and it's easier to just be at 4 life and have it. So they just play Saiyan Kaba, and then you get a free Khalifa or Kale. And when the card first came out, you had only this 2-drop Khalifa, but since the Saiyan Teamwork Kaba doesn't clarify about that, do I spell her name wrong? Alright, yeah, so you can get like Bold Super Saiyan 2 Khalifa, and which would summon another card. It would have to be a Universe 6 from the top 7 of your deck with 1500 or less. This Kaba is not Universe 6, but it's just like a lot of synergies between that, and so you could see easily why it could get out of control, and why Veggies was really good for a long time, and people are still trying to experiment with the deck because it's still really strong. But yeah, and that's bad. And for people who are curious, the reason that Shugesh exists and the intended purpose for it was simply to get out these 3-drop Great Ape Saiyans. So it'd be like not only Fascia, but it's supposed to get out like, oh, you can play the 1-drop Fascia for free, like this one here, and then you can like evolve into it with this, right? Like that's the whole idea. That was the original idea, and then they're just like made it super open-ended and really broken, and then they decided, oh, we should probably look at other sets when building cards too. So that's what happened with Cronoa, and for the most part, it's been all right. It really differentiates the best of 3 and the best of 1 format, which I don't like really. I don't like the fact that you have to be so like vigorous, like, oh man, I have to put counters in my main deck because who knows when I'm playing in a best of 1, and compared to a best of 3, you just make the best deck you can and then figure out your counters in your side deck later. So, but yeah, that's the example of a silver bullet, and some probably examples of kind of counters are kind of catch-alls are just stuff like minus Killy Zone and stuff like that. So it is a thin kind of blurred line, but in general, I feel like counters are more open-ended. So Killy Zone right now is any counterplay for the duration of the turn. So there are a lot of things like Cold Bloodlust or Preemptive Strike that are Crusher Ball that could really get in your way from your combos. So you play this to kind of counter that. And there's also like Bad Ring Laser, which could counter any counterplay stuff as well. So that's the kind of idea for just. I mean, the cards really have the name counter in their skills, right? But that's not the only thing. And then there's also like Kami and Dende. They're just kind of good generic utility in the sense that they can shut down certain types of playstyles. So Dende obviously is really good at shutting down ramping decks, and Kami is really good for shutting down decks that swarm the battle area. So that's really good. I think that's something that's needed. So in general, that's how counters work. So anyways, that's how we kind of stopped with So anyways, that's kind of how we got Cronoa, just to kind of counter the meta and do that. And that's how they did the silver bullet strategy. And then lastly, they've got like the ban list, which you've obviously seen come to effect, where they get like Goku. So that's kind of the state that we're in now. We've got Cronoa, and it's just a silver bullet for Shugash and any potential like cards that come out in the future that they decide to do that. I hope they don't, because it's really dumb. It doesn't seem like it's a really good mechanic in my opinion. But and then the last tool, I guess they have 2 more tools. They have a way to they did decide to ban and limit cards. They first decided to do that with SS3. They decided, oh, we've tried to release some silver bullets like Force Ejection Mass Saiyan, and they've also tried to, and like, oh, Dende's coming out in the future too, so watch out for that. But yeah, they decide, oh, he's too powerful, too strong, and he can probably win the game before you can even have Dende out and have enough energy to proc his ability. So I think that's probably why they did that. But yeah, they just and then like Flute's getting banned, it was limited, and all the other stuff that's been talked about that's coming out February 1st for that ban list. But yeah, so that's the last tool. The unofficial tool is to just kind of errata how cards work, like they did with Force Ejection Mass Saiyan as well. And this is probably just because there was a bad translation, but if they can just change the ruling and then it fixes the card, right? They can say, oh, actually, when we made this card, it's supposed to be ruled like this. The English translation is kind of ruled to be something else. So, for example, Force Ejection Mass Saiyan, it says if you have placed energy in your charge phase this turn and you have less energy than your opponent, choose one of your opponent's energy and send it to the warp. And so what they ruled is that it checks your energy at the beginning of your turn after your charge phase. So there's a blue Vegeta leader that is one of my favorites that got hit from this, because what he can do is you can attack and then draw a card, choose one of your energy, add it to your hand, and then if you choose an energy, choose up to 1 card in your hand, add it to your energy. So you can, it's supposed to just be you pick up an energy and then put another one down, and it could be the same one. It's just essentially untapping, but with more versatility. And then people were doing it, they were just taking the energy back, something they already used, and then they're back down to like 3 energy, and then your opponent's at 4, and you place the card in your charge area this turn. So you could blow up an energy from SS3 or something like that. But then they're like, oh no, that's dumb. we don't want that, so we changed the ruling, and now it's like that. So, and I don't think the ruling is consistent with how the card text is. I think they just didn't want to make an errata. So, anyways, yeah. So back to kind of the silver bullets versus counters. So obviously, time control Cronoa is specifically against Shugesh at the moment. If they make any other stuff, that's a silver bullet too. But then there's kind of counters. I'd say like Dende and Kami, which are both kind of against the kind of play styles, right? Dende is a counter to a generic play style of placing more energy, cheating out energy, and Kami is a kind of a generic counter to just board swarming. I think these cards are really good. I think these are necessary cards, and I think adding to the game just really helps out the diversity and your counterplay as well. And that's kind of what I feel counter cards are. There's something that counters a specific playstyle. There's also like the Majin attacker and protector, specifically attack Majin because this one's really good. Just the fact that you can untap 4 energy if your opponent's leader just happens to be green or yellow. I think that's really powerful. And it's also a 15k crit for no reason, so that's like a free crit attacker. But these aren't like a silver bullet for a silver or green deck. This is just a generic counter for it, and that's kind of really how it is. And the line can be blurred a little bit. There are cards like striving to be the best Goku. It is a hard counter to storm decks, and originally I feel like it was made for 2 counter storm, especially Burnished Bronze Borgos, kind of the same thing, not being able to untap energy using a non-awakened skill. Like you can just stop on Trunks and Senzu Bean on the offense, but even though it's just a generic counter, it was definitely specifically targeting Storm, right? And apparently, Bandai R&D decided, even though these cards are coming out, Storm is still too stupid and powerful, so let's get rid of Goten, which I think was the right move. But anyways, so yeah, and so it gave me this idea of just like, when is the right time to release these counters and silver bullets? Is it better to release these cards before there's a problem coming? So something that I've been seeing is there have been kind of a lot of cards with like silver bullet-y like effects. Like for example, like there's Heavenly Wizard Demigra. During your turn when you combo with this card, if your opponent has 3 or less energy, choose one of your opponent's battle cards ignoring barrier with 30k power or more and KO it. Like that's really specifically targeting something with some big 30k coming out and KOing it, which I don't. So far, like the only thing that could happen is like a Cell Chain exactly on turn 3, but no one played this card. It was bad. So, but yeah, this definitely could open up the door to a strategy that they have some big 30k thing on turn 3 and I can KO it for free, right? So that's really powerful, right? So that is a silver bullet, but there's nothing really for it to target right now. And like something else, there's like Cargo Namekian Youth. When you play this card, draw 1 and then choose one of your opponent's skillless battle cards in rest mode and KO it. No one's really playing big skillless battle cards. They are pushing the archetype next set, so I was wondering, is this something of like preemptively silver bullet something? And that's something I think is I would prefer, right? I would prefer having an option to counter something come out before the actual archetype, and that's people can go both ways. You can say, I want the archetype to come out, see how powerful it is, and then see if there's a counter. But if it's a really degenerate strategy, I don't want to have to wait till next set to counter it, right? So that's the flip and flop. Like if there's a hard counter to a card, the deck won't exist because people say, this card exists, so you can't play this. It completely invalidates this deck. And I don't think that's completely true. But it just makes me think like, when is the right time? Is it even right to release a counter for a deck when it comes out? For example, there's Mercenary Tau came out or is getting announced for next set, and it's specifically targeting hand destruction, and one of the new green's always been hand destruction, but it's specifically against probably the new slug stuff that's coming out and some of the new brawly stuff too. So it's a counter for the deck when it comes out, which I think is okay. And I think it's just as good as a card coming out before a deck or archetype gets really good, but it's really powerful, and it's something to put a deck in check without it running rampant from day one, which I think is good. I think a lot of the decks that have been really degenerate and stuff eventually do get hard counters anyways, and so if the idea is like, we're going to make a really powerful deck, and then we can't, you know, you have to play this or not, and then when you finally invest in it, oh, we're going to release some cards that counter it, and so it's a bad investment for you. It doesn't feel good as someone who's been playing this deck to have it destroyed, and that's kind of what happens with ban lists too. I feel like if, you know, Bandai's like, oh, sorry, we admit we screwed up, these cards are too powerful, we're going to ban them to make the game better for everyone and make it specifically worse for you. I can feel, you know, really feel that sting. And then, like, lastly, the last way you can do it is you can release a card like way after the card becomes relevant. So like this No Escape Son Goku. So when you play this card, draw one card. And players can't choose non-keyword skills to return battle cards in their battle area to their hand during the duration of the game. So this is like a Chronoa for Flute, and then also like the right now I guess like the Pan, because it doesn't affect swap, but it affects stuff like that. But like this card came out like 6 months after Flute, and by the time it came out, Flute was banned. So I don't really know why they put this card in. Maybe they're going to try to experiment with that kind of stuff in the future. But saying how good Flute is, I hesitate to think like, oh, they're either going to undertune it, and so No Escape Son Goku doesn't do anything anyways, or what have you. I mean, it's once again, all these silver bullets and hard counters. I think the biggest thing for me is they're all black, which I think is really good, and they're all generic one cost that you draw a card with too, right? So worst case, it's free cycle, right? It's a 1 energy cycle, which I think is really good. I think they did a really good job balancing it like that. So even if you're playing against a deck that, you know, Kami or Dende wouldn't do anything in, you still get at least a card draw, and you get some benefit from that. Same kind of thing with Dark Power Black Messiah. But he has like he can also self-awaken you instead of drawing a card, so there's some difference in there. But yeah, I think they're all the idea behind them is really good, and I think the implementation is good. But like when it came to Dende and No Escape Son Goku, I think Dende came out way too late. Like the cards these guys are trying to counter, they came out right after they decided to fix the cards that are broken, right? So it's kind of weird design philosophy that way, and that's kind of why I prefer that the card comes out first and then the problem card comes out later, that it counters. So yeah, that's it for me. This has been kind of rambly, but I hope that, you know, people kind of think about it a little bit on how they prefer cards to be released, and like, oh, just don't release broken cards, and like, oh, that's not really a way. And I'd rather have a broken deck that has counter cards like Chronoa or No Escape Son Goku than nothing. And I think that's a lot of people would prefer that. But it really is hard from like a design philosophy to say, is this effect how powerful is the deck really? Is it powerful enough that we should release a counter to it in the set, or do you want to just let it settle and see how the meta develops? And I think that's a lot of what happens. I still prefer that. And it's really hard to see how busted a deck is without a lot of practice and a lot of insight. And so I understand why they decide to hold off a little bit to release the silver bullets for a card. But the best way to do it is to not need cards that need silver bullets. But that's really hard. So anyways, that's the end of my ramble. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.